Hi, this is Pat McGraw. I want to welcome you to today's webinar on Competitive Intelligence 101, how to attract and retain more profitable buyers by playing to your strengths and your competitors' weaknesses. In this presentation, we'll talk about what competitive intelligence is, what the basic tools and techniques are, as well as best practices. And at the end of this session, you'll be able to determine if competitive intelligence can help your business and what you'll need to do in order to develop a successful competitive intelligence function within your business. Now, this is based on a white paper that is available for free, has some additional information, more depth, and if you'd like a free copy of it, please email me at pat@mcgrawmarketing.com and I'll be happy to send you a copy. So let's start with the basics. What's competitive intelligence? How can it help your business? What's involved in the process? Well, this is what we're here for today, to minimize unpleasant surprises and maximize our opportunities for success. Competitive intelligence is a systematic program for gathering and analyzing information about your competitors' activities and general business trends to further your own company's goals. In other words, it's a way about getting out ahead of the marketplace. Now, there's nothing more exciting than coming in for that weekly leadership meeting or sales meeting and being greeted at the front door by one of your colleagues who's announcing very nicely that the competition's launched a new product and it's smaller or bigger or redder or greener and it's less expensive and it can do more and sales are going to go down and what are we going to do? Really what you want to be able to do is use competitive intelligence to be able to walk into these meetings before this ever occurs and be able to say, based on our intelligence, we know that these things are going to be occurring. This is how we are going to respond, and this is what we anticipate happening, and this is what we'll monitor in order to make sure that we stay on track. You're more proactive in this type of an approach as opposed to reactive, and you're much more likely to be better prepared with multiple options at your disposal on what you can do in order to maximize your opportunities for greater success. Now, let's talk about the process of gathering and running an effective competitive intelligence program. If you start at the upper left corner, planning, obviously this is going to start with need. You've identified something that you know you need to improve upon. You want to have a better understanding of who your audience is, who your competition is promoting to, who their target audience is, how much they're spending on promotional activities, how many salespeople do they have out there on the road calling on the same people that you're calling on. What's their likelihood of being able to run a new product or service to market before anybody else? Are they highly innovative? What if we went out and in order to capture more customers, lowered our prices? Would they do the same thing? Do they have the financial resources to match us? These are types of questions that you need to pop up and identify, and that's what your planning session is for. Then you talk about how you're going to collect and store the data so that everyone has easy access to it and then can use it for an analysis to turn that data into relevant information that can be reported across the organization with action steps, action plans to take that valuable insight and turn it into action. Again, you don't want to do this for nice to know products or projects. This isn't a let's gather a whole bunch of really cool information and not do anything about it. The focus of the plan, the program here with competitive intelligence is to understand opportunities to improve your own business's success. So it needs to be action oriented. It needs to be corporate wide. It needs to be part of the culture. And we'll get into the details on that in just as we go through the rest of the presentation. So let's talk about the planning stage. There's your customer, the big turquoise, I don't know, I guess it's kind of like a pink color. And there's the other competition in yourself, and that represents your share of that audience. So the customer, that's your target audience. You're competing for them with 3 other companies, and each of you have a certain share of that marketplace. And there's some other smaller competitors out there, but those are your 3 main competitors. And what you've identified is a need to better understand these competitors so that you can position yourself differently, play to your strengths, play to their weaknesses, and maybe not go after this entire customer, but identify segments of this audience where you have a unique advantage over the competition, and there's enough of a demand from that segment, that niche, that makes more sense for you to go after a smaller group than it does the larger audience. So this is a good opportunity for you to identify and rank opportunities for profitable growth. So when you sit down, you're going to want to know what question you're going to want to address, what questions you need to be answered, where can you find quality information, who's responsible for gathering and analyzing the information, how will recommendations be developed and shared, and then, as you've seen with me in other presentations, I'm going to go back to test, measure, analyze, modify, and repeat. Anything that you take from your competitive intelligence program, you've analyzed the data, you've identified opportunities, you want to go and pursue this option, you need to test and measure and analyze and modify in order to make sure that it is successful. Or if it's not, then you want to test it so that you're minimizing your exposure and not opening yourself up to a large risk. And we'll get into the details again on that in just a little bit. But this isn't about, okay, we've gathered some information or some data, we've analyzed it, we've come up with a decision, we're going to change the entire business dramatically. That's rare if ever. But what we're talking about is we've got some ideas and some opportunities. Let's see which one works best. Now, the questions that you want to have answered, I've broken them down into some of these areas. One here that I left off is financials. Obviously, your CFO is going to want to look at that as well. But the company overview, who do they target, what products and services do they have, pricing, what's the pricing strategy, how do they distribute their products and services to the marketplace, how do they promote their products and services, and even look at human resources in terms of who they hire, how they hire, how they train, how they evaluate, how they compensate, how they motivate. These are areas that you can identify competitive advantages on. Now, under company overview, the kind of questions you want to have answered is what's their mission and vision, what's their historical performance been, what were their key milestones over the course of their history, have they won awards or gained recognition. Take a look at their organizational chart, their structure, who reports to who, what's the leadership's experience, where do they come from, what are their historically, how do they behave, are they risk takers, are they very cautious, are they innovative, are they fast to market, are they willing to spend a lot of money to grab market share, or are they very conservative in their nature. Look at the goals and objectives of the organization as well as their key strategies. Identify key metrics, and this is where you can get into the financials here too as well. Number of employees, number of locations, annual revenue, all the different ratios that the chief financial officer and the accounting team are going to be interested in looking at. This is where you'd have this type of questions you'd answer under company overview, or you could break financials out to financials on their own. Under target audiences, some of the questions you might want to deal with and address and try to gather information and insight on are key metrics. If it's a consumer audience that they target, who is it? Let's get down to the details. Let's get as much as we can on demographics and psychographics, behavioral segments, geographic location, how many customers they have in total, what's their growth rate, what about by segment? If they're targeting businesses, you want to look at the firmographic metrics, industry, the number of employees, revenue, number of locations, and other metrics in that family. You might want to look at a geographic market as well. Look at who the major clients are. If a B2B organization, who is their top 10 customers by revenue? How long have they been with them? What are they buying? How does that relationship seem to be? Is it a contract? Is it just a verbal agreement? If it's on the consumer side, you're going to want to look at what segments of their overall audience are largest with them. Is it females 25 to 35 who live in rural areas versus suburban areas. What's their breakdown in terms of largest customer type? Under products and services, you want to look at each product and service and break it down with a clean description, who the target audience is for that product or service, the key features and benefits, historical sales, not only in total dollars, but also as a percentage of total sales. What year was that product or service launched? How old is it? Where is it in the life cycle? Is it new? Is it in the growth phase? Is it in a mature phase or in the lagging phase? Talk about innovation, excuse me. What's their new product development process like? How frequently do they come out with new products? How successful have they been? Are they a company that likes to throw out 10, 20, 30 new products a year and hopefully they get one big one? Or are they somebody who comes out with one or two and they are steady in terms of revenue generation? Pricing. What kind of a strategy do they have? Are they looking at a skimming strategy where they're charging a premium like as if a luxury item, or penetration pricing, low-cost pricing so they can grab market share? How do they use discounts and promotions, or do they? What about finance options? What about guarantees? Do that by product and service and try to get as much historical data as you can to see if any developing trends or patterns in their pricing strategies. Distribution. What channels do they get their products and services out to the user? How do they use strategic partners? Who are they? What are the reputation of those partners? Look at the reach and market penetration. For example, if they say that they serve everyone in the continental United States, are they able to really do that, or are there certain areas where they just don't have any reach and you can't get their products because they don't have a way to get distributed into those areas? Does their distribution strategy allow them to access 100% of their target audience in the geographic market that they focus on? And if not, you might be able to identify areas where you could go in and capture market share in certain geographies. Promotion. Obviously, you want to know what their budget is, their strategies in terms of what's their unique selling points, how they position themselves, how they list features and benefits for their products and services, which products and services they feature more prominently in their promotional activities, and which ones don't they feature at all. What's their brand strategy? What's their creative look? How do they use their logo? How do they use colors? How do they use fonts? How do they use different channels to convey what they're all about? What's their messaging? What's their value proposition? What media do they use? Try to rebuild their communication plan so you get a good idea as to, their budget is X and it looks like 10% of it goes into print or online or social media or whatever the channels might be. Take a look at the website, evaluate that and their social media and their content marketing strategies. Is their website more of a brochure, or is it filled with calls to actions and offers in order to capture leads, or is it an e-commerce site? How do they use social media? What social media do they use? How do they use it? They may use some more heavily than others. Why is that? Is it because of their target market, or is it just because their staff has more experience and comfort with that than others? Look at their content marketing strategy. What are they writing about? What are they producing content about? And what seems to be working? Get a feel for, if they're going to webinars, sign up for a webinar, attend it, see what it's like, not only in the content size, but also see how many people are showing up and attending these types of events. Do they have strategic partnerships where they're working with other companies to distribute and promote their products and services in the marketplace? Human resources. As strange as this might sound, look at what jobs they are advertising and where they are located. Look at the qualification requirements. Look at the compensation needs. What's their hiring process like? Is it a phone interview and a face-to-face and you're offered a job, or is it a battery of interviews over a 3-day period, or Is it some combination thereof? What's the training and development program for employees? What's the compensation like? Are they above the industry norm? Are they below it? Are they right in line with what you have for similar positions? Look at trends like how frequently they advertise certain positions and what those types of positions are. One of the things that I helped a client find through a competitive intelligence program and our efforts on focusing on human resources, and when we were able to identify that they had an awful lot of call center jobs that were open in their service area, and they ran this ad continuously for 6 months. And so we did some digging, and we were able to find out that the reason for the hiring was they were opening 2 new call centers and they were expanding their business. They had aggressive growth goals coming up. That had a big impact on how we put together our strategies moving forward. In another scenario, same type of situation, only it was the reason for hiring so many call center operators was high turnover, and they couldn't keep people in the job long enough. And we realized that had a terrible impact on customer satisfaction, which was an opportunity for us to go after some of their key clients more aggressively and bring them over to our fold because of the unstable nature of service and support in that business at that time. So who is responsible for gathering and analyzing the information? You want to build a cross-functional competitive intelligence team. And we're just going through those areas where we wanted to ask those questions. You've got your marketing department, you've got your products and services group, you've got distribution, you've got pricing and financials from the CFO's perspective, you've got HR. You want to get these people involved for a couple of reasons. One, their expertise and familiarity with their content area will be able to help you identify what the key questions are that need to be answered, so that once we gather the information and analyze the information, realistic change can be made. More data-driven decisions can be made that will help those people do a better job and achieve the goals of the organization. The other is they're going to be able to not only identify what questions need to be answered, but what are high-quality sources of information to get data from. What you want to avoid is A, spending a whole bunch of time running around trying to gather information that may or may not be deemed valuable. And B, what you want to avoid is somebody later on down the road coming in and going, oh, I don't like this quality of the sources of the data that you got. It raises questions about everything, so we're just not going to do anything with the information that we've analyzed and the recommendations that are coming forth because we don't believe it's built on solid data. So working with these people, you get vision into the questions that need to be asked and answered. You get direction and focus on where you're going to gather that data. And then they're going to be able to do the analysis and the recommendations to drive relevant improvements in their areas to help the organization as best they can. So it's important to have this team built cross-functional across the organization. The other is this makes this a company-wide initiative and not a marketing initiative, which is critical to the long-term success. If they don't buy in at the beginning and the marketing department ends up having to do all the work, your competitive intelligence program is going to have a very short lifeline. As I mentioned, this type of an approach will help you find out where the quality information is, and then you'll work out together how those recommendations will be developed and shared. Let's talk about the collection process for a second. There are internal sources of information and there are external sources of information. Some will come from humans, some will come from documents, and some will come from a little bit of both. Obviously, the highest quality sources are going to be the human sources, because as you talk to them, you're not only going to get answers to the questions that you asked, but you're going to get additional commentary that will help you better understand things. They will share things with you that you hadn't thought of, and they know are important for a variety of reasons. Internally, you're going to want to talk to your management team, sales, customer service, your call center, marketing, technical support staff. They're going to have possibly worked for the competition. They're going to possibly have gone to conferences and events where they have encountered the competition. They have talked to customers who have been working with the competition. in some instances, they will have been doing informal competitive intelligence on their own, and they're going to pull out some information and share it with you. So this is all about gathering the expertise and the data and bringing it into one spot so that the entire organization can benefit from it. External sources include customers who have worked with the competition in the past, as well as suppliers, journalists, consultants, researchers, even government agencies if possible. Anybody out there who is studying or working with those competitors is a great source of information. And you sit down, you talk with them, you listen, you have regular meetings with them, and you continue to pick their brain and learn from what they've experienced in the marketplace. As I mentioned, documents, there are a number of documents in every organization on the competition that somebody has picked up, put in a folder, put in a desk, and meant to share with someone at some point and just never got around to it. So start gathering those types of bits of information and putting them in a place. In some of the companies that I've worked with and helped in the past, former employees have brought all their paperwork with them, and there were training manuals, and there were benefit guides, and there were marketing proposals and plans that had been shared with everybody inside the organization and out at conferences and other events. And these people had collected them and just kept them in a file. So you can take a look at them and use it as part of your intelligence gathering. Other external sources, homepages, corporate websites, their blogs, media reports, patents that have been filed. They're also take a look at the social media activity of some of the key employees, the leadership team. CEO may have a personal blog. Maybe involved in LinkedIn and on certain groups talking about certain topics. And those are areas where you can monitor commentary and areas of interest in order to help get a better, fuller picture of what's going on. And I mentioned, the importance of site visits, trade fairs, seminars, the whole 9 yards. Now, there's other sources of information out there like Hoover's, which is a great database run by Dun & Bradstreet D&B company that provides you with some good information in terms of basic firmographics. I mentioned corporate websites, blogs, social media is a really important place. I've been amazed at what I've found for public consumption on corporate websites. Detailed marketing plans that were presented at a conference and posted online for anybody to download. Blog posts that talk about where the CEO thinks the future of his industry is going. And when you look at the HR reports and you see that they're hiring people in those areas, you then know that they're making the commitment internally to, or you should feel confident that they are making the commitment internally to invest in those types of products and services going forward. So a lot of information out there. I mentioned following people on LinkedIn, or if they're, the company has a corporate page on Facebook. What are they talking about? What are they sharing with their audience, their customers out there? Google Alerts is a very valuable tool. You can go into Google search, and then once you do the search on whatever terms you want to do the search on, scroll to the bottom, and that area there on the screen that's in red, you can create an email alert. I just happen to do the search on competitor. And every day or week, you can set up the frequency on your own. You'll get anything that would have come up in a Google search for those terms that you had entered. It's a great way to type in a competitor's name and get anything that's going on about the competitor sent to your inbox on a regular basis. I mentioned LinkedIn. On the corporate pages, you can see who's been hired, who's left the company, who's been promoted. You can see who the key executives are. You can go in and look at their profiles. You can see what groups they belong to. You can then join those groups and see what kind of discussions they get involved in and see what you can learn from their interests and their participation in conversations there. Twitter is another good search. If you look up at the top of that slide, next to the Twitter logo, you'll see the search box. And you can do customized searches. This one is for small businesses or entrepreneur or startups. And you could put in company names and and anything you want in terms of keywords, do a complex search and then have that come up to you and get a feed, an RSS feed for that query sent to you so that you can read regular updates on what's being said about your competition online. Syndicated research is conducted by independent research organizations and financed either by the members or by sales to non-members or both. I've worked with these organizations in various situations: EduVentures for higher education, National Retail Federation for some work I did for some retail clients, Gartner and Forrester in the technology area. There's usually some type of research firm that focuses on an industry and allows for membership in order to get access to research and reports, or you can buy their syndicated research on your own as a non-member. There's other sources out there. Factiva is a Dow Jones and Reuters, similar to Hoover's, a little bit more detail in there. The little diagram underneath there is for reverse engineering, the good old-fashioned buy the product, take it apart, and see how it works, and see how it compares to yours. But those are some of the more popular and easy ways to collect information. So now the point is you've got the data. How do you analyze it and turn it into valuable information? And then how do you put together the report within the organization? And then the report leads to action, and that action needs to be tested and measured so that you can get a good feel for are you being effective with the utilization of that information. With most clients, because you've set it up at the beginning, in terms of you've got those content area experts in finance, in HR, and other areas that have put together the questions and identified the sources for quality data and have agreed to do the analysis. What makes sense is to set up a regular meeting of the leadership team to sit down and report on what their findings were and what their recommendations are, and then also to discuss what the action steps will be afterwards. And then, just like any type of business program, you'll have goals and objectives, strategies, tactics, an owner, key milestones, and a schedule of key activities and timelines and budgets, and you'll be able to then execute off of those strategies and take the lessons learned, put them to use, and then be able to evaluate the effectiveness later on. In summary, we've got the importance of having very clear objectives of what it is you want to learn, what you want to get out of it. Focus on action. It's not about gathering information and nice-to-know information. It's about what do I need to know in order to make a better informed decision that could help the company achieve its goals and objectives more effectively. Identify quality sources of information for a variety of reasons, but it saves you time in several ways. Build the team in the process. Make it a company initiative. Don't let it be a marketing initiative. Be neutral. When you look at your findings, don't personalize. Try to stay as neutral as you can, and be open to whatever it is that you find out. Go to the information. By that I mean talk to the human beings internally and externally. They're your highest quality sources. Rely on that human intelligence, and be ethical in your behavior. Don't do anything that's going to potentially embarrass you or the organization that you work for. Don't misrepresent yourself. Be honest all the time. You may not get all the information that you want, but it's better to not get that information than it is to get caught trying to misrepresent yourself in order to obtain that kind of information. If you want to learn more, here's some other sources that you might want to check out. Fold & Company is a fantastic organization, and their founder, Leonard Fold, has the book, The Secret Language of Competitive Intelligence. There's the Society of Competitive Intelligence Professionals, as well as the Academy of Competitive Intelligence, and then some other sources there as well. Again, this is from a larger, more detailed white paper, and you can get a copy of that by emailing me at pat@McGraw Marketing. I want to thank you for your time and just remind you that for the last 20-odd years, I've been working with small, medium, and large businesses, helping them develop and execute more effective sales and marketing strategies that attract and retain more profitable customers. If you want to learn a little bit more about my background, check me out on LinkedIn. Visit my website at mcgrawmarketing.com. Be sure to check out the blog as well as the free stuff, which includes sales and marketing tools, white papers, and videos. And you can always call me at 410-977-7355. Thanks for your time. Look forward to hearing from you.